Hey everybody, it's Mark Arnstein and Remax Hallmark and livingnorthtoronto.com. This is the Mark Arnstein Show, and this is episode number 7. And today we're with FTGU media expert Laura Stewart talking about personal branding and how to conquer social media.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the FTGU Media Show. I am your host, Laura Stewart, and today I'm so excited because I have a dear friend who's coming to join me all the way from like 2 blocks over on Yonge Street, I believe. Mark Arnstein, thank you so much for joining us. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic. We're wrapping up the year here, and like 2022 is around the corner, and I think 2022 is just going to be fantastic. What do you think?
No, I agree. I think it's just going to take off right from where we left off from this year. I think you're going to just see things start to really ramp up in all different levels and all different aspects of the market as things open up that much more. I've been saying this all the time. Once that more of that immigration starts floating into the city, whoa, watch out. It's going to be guns a-blazing.
So for our listeners, if they haven't figured it out already, based on you and I going immediately into the real estate market, Mark is obviously a real estate agent, a very well-known real estate agent, particularly in the Yonge and Eglinton kind of area. Mark, why don't you take us back a little bit? Like, when did you start in real estate?
Well, okay, so I have a double start date career. So I started originally in Vancouver at a young lad 5 years ago. No, okay, at 25 years old. So I was an agent there for 9 years. And then my wife is from here, and we were living out west, and she was having just too hard of a time being so far away from home and missing her family. So a happy wife is a happy life. I agreed to relocate to Toronto 17 years ago. Thank you. And started my career all over again from scratch. So I've been doing it for a total of 26 years, but 17 years in Toronto and 9 years in Vancouver. So I've worked in 2 of the craziest markets in Canada.
Well, that's fascinating. I didn't know about the Vancouver part. And I hope my husband's listening to this because as you said, a happy wife is a happy life. So John, if you're listening, pay attention to this man because he's got it figured out.
Call me. I'll give you some tips.
He's got it figured out. Okay. So take me back. When you start in real estate, what was kind of your marketing strategy? Like, I'm getting right down into it today. What were you kind of doing? Were you farming a neighborhood always? Were you doing just listed, just sold flyers? What was your strategy?
So in Vancouver or in Toronto? Because there are 2 completely different strategies.
Oh, I want to hear both then. Take us back to Vancouver. Take us back there.
Okay, so Vancouver, when I started, I was young. So I was, like I said earlier, I was 25 years old. So I didn't really have the budget to go into a farming aspect of real estate because that is a very expensive avenue to go down. You have to have some money in your bank account if you're going to do that style of marketing. So I went off of like the database part of it and then working a ton of open houses and then constantly letting people know what it was that I was doing. And when I had success, letting people know about that success. So that was kind of the route that I went to in Vancouver. Because again, my sphere of people that I knew were too young to really start tapping into the market. So it took a couple of years for that to kind of start to take off. And then once that did, it came very much a database referral style brand building, building up my network that way. And then when I moved to Toronto, I came here not knowing a single person. So I had to start everything all over again from scratch. Thank God I had my dog. We got a puppy right when we first moved here. No, I'm serious.
What's your dog's? Is this dog still alive?
No, she passed away. Oh, she died 7 years ago. Yeah.
Now I feel bad that I brought this up, but I just love animals.
Okay, we have a new one. We have the COVID puppy. Yeah.
COVID puppy, right?
Yeah. So, but like having her was like my everything because like she, I wanted to go into farming, but because of the dog and having to get my license for here, while I was doing that, I trained her, went for walks, learned the neighborhood, met people because everyone stops to talk to you when you have a puppy, especially. And
everyone knows everyone's dog's name. No one knows each other's name in any neighborhood, right?
Totally. And she was a golden doodle, so she's one of the original ones. So she was like very cute and fluffy and just like had a great personality. And honestly, she was literally my saving grace when I first moved here because I was like going to go a bit crazy because it was kind of like taking a big fish in a small pond and then dropping somebody into a ocean that's now a minnow. And then trying to kind of figure out how to, crawl, walk, swim, run all those things at once when you don't necessarily know the neighborhood and neighborhoods and you don't know the people. I knew the business, I just didn't know the ins and outs of where I was going to be doing it. So because of her, it was a big help for sure. 100%. I met a lot of people that way. But then I went into the aspect of farming, and I started off with about a 5,000 farm neighborhood that I think we were doing twice a month, regular mail to it. And then eventually we upped it up to 3, then to 4, then I grew from 5 to 75, and then I grew from 75 to 10,000.
Well, damn, that's how it's done, people. I was talking to a client the other day who was coming in to talk to us about our media services, and he was telling me about his strategy, new agent, and he's going down the billboard route and the bus stop branding route. And I was taken aback. I didn't quite realize the cost associated with that type of branding still to this day. It's in the couple $1,000s a month. And I'm thinking to myself, does that stuff still work? And I remember when he was telling me about this, I thought, who I want to ask about this is Mark, because I wanted to know if you ever went down that path to kind of go with like those big banners, the big advertisements. Did you ever do anything like that?
Still do.
You still do? Okay.
Oh, yeah. So we have 2 stationary bus shelters, one at Yonge and Cranbrook, and then the other one is at Avenue Road in Fairlawn. The Avenue Road and Fairlawn one's on the east side of the street on the outside part of the shelter. So if you're driving southbound on Avenue Road, you'll see it's actually right in front of Hemisphere now, which is kind of ironic that it's in front of a pot shop, but that's okay. And then the other one's on the outside too, going northbound on Yonge from Lawrence, just at Yonge and Cranbrook on the west side of the street. So we've done those for probably about 7-8 years now. And then we have banners in a couple garages as well. One in Yorkville, 3 at Yonge and Eglinton, and 3 at Yonge and Eglinton. But it's all part of so when you're farming a neighborhood and you're working in a very specific area, it's all about, it's called your reticular activator, right? So it's the trigger in your brain that, if you think about it, buying a new car is probably one of the best examples. You got a car in your mind that you want to buy, then all of a sudden you start seeing that car everywhere, right? There's another one. Oh, there's another one. There's another one. So it's the same idea. So it's all about the repetition of seeing. So you see your stuff coming through the door, through on the mail walks for the postcards or neighbor newsletters, those kinds of things. Then they see a bus shelter ad. Then they see a for sale sign. Then they see like another ad in a parking garage. Like they're like, oh my God, that guy's like everywhere. Like he's got to be doing a crazy amount of business because I see him everywhere I go. So then all of a sudden now time comes to start thinking about doing a real estate. Oh, I got to call Mark, obviously, because he's the guy who's around everywhere. So
right. Okay. So it still works.
I
love this.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I'm going to give it a little pitch right now for a second, but it's interesting you bring this up at this time because obviously, you guys are involved a bit with Serhant. I'm heavily involved with Ryan Serhant from $1 Million Listing New York and Serhant and his own real estate company. But they just launched their new program called Building Your Brand Strategy. And, Ryan's built his whole entire business on his brand. And, and I actually made a post about this, ironically, a couple of days ago. I just kind of said, what's more important, the brokerage brand or your personal brand? And it started a massive conversation, which was really cool from a social media standpoint because it's all about that engagement. But the point to it is that, when you're new into the business, relatively new, the brokerage brand is very important 100% because it helps get your foot in the door. Right, helps give you some
brokerage with a good reputation. All of a sudden, you're working with those people. You also can hand off listings or lean on people for advice and tips and things like that. Right?
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's super important. And it's supposed to go in like a brokerage that nobody has ever heard of before because you think you're going to get a really good deal because you're going to get this crazy split. And look, but if no one's heard of you, how are you going to get you into the door to go see people? Right? Because people still get confused to this day. Like, sorry, are you with Remax, Royal Page? I can't, but they know me and they know the brand. So that's all that really matters. So when you're new in the business, the brokerage should become super important. And it does stay with you as you build your career as well. But eventually the shift becomes more you, the brand, first of all, and the brokerage becomes secondary. But we want that powerful brokerage behind you as well because it adds additional support for everything that you're going to need down the road as you do grow your business.
So you took me right into this personal branding conversation. So thank you for the awesome segue.
I try and help as much as I can. You know me.
Nice little layup there, Mark. I appreciate it. So yeah, me personally, like why I kind of got into the real estate industry was I was doing my MBA at Schulich, and I took a course that was heavily focused. We had a project that was called Me Inc. And the idea of the project, and now keep in mind, this was back in 2012. So personal branding probably wasn't as hot a topic as it certainly is today. But the idea of the project was if you were a brand, what would you stand for? How would you market yourself? What's your brand positioning? Who's your target market? All these things. And that was a couple-week project, right? And I thought, oh, I love this stuff. This is so fascinating to me. I actually liked it better than any of my marketing classes for companies because I just find people are so unique and there's so many facets and different things to them. You know, a company like IKEA, for example, we were just talking off air earlier about your chair. That's why I said IKEA. You know, that's a very specific brand. We know what it means, and they don't really veer off of that brand. Where people, there's ebbs and flows, and we change and we grow. And I just think it's so interesting to really brand a person. And that's why I thought, you know what, I want to get into real estate because I really think I could do something here from a personal branding perspective. So I came into the industry always going down that route. It never really occurred to me to go down the billboard and the advertising. I was definitely, my mindset was online. I kind of felt like that's where people's attention were. In my opinion, even if you're at the bus stop, chances are you're doing this at the bus stop with your head in your phone. So that's kind of the path that I went down. I would love for you to tell us kind of when you started doing the social media and you really started engaging your personal brand online. Like, what was your thought process then?
Oh wow, loaded question.
I like to load up my questions.
Clearly. But just before I get into the answer on that one, I want to just touch on what you said about branding. You mentioned IKEA, but think of things like Kleenex and ketchup, right? We automatically refer. Can you pass me? Can you get me a Kleenex? Can you pass the ketchup? Right? Those are actually brands. They're not the actual product itself. The product is tissue, and the other product is tomato paste. But you automatically refer to it as ketchup, which is the brand, right? So it's kind of, so they've done a phenomenal job of their establishing their brands because it's ingrained into our daily language. We don't adjust off that. But getting back to answer your question, so obviously, I'm a little bit older. I will admit it. I'm 51. But like, you
don't have to share, but I appreciate that you do that.
I'm not shy.
You're 51 and proud.
Exactly. Damn right, baby. But anyways, my point is like, that people say, oh, social media, it's a young person's game and all this stuff. And, and it's interesting in our industry itself. I'm going to give you a very long-winded answer to your question, but I'm going to get there. I promise. Is that typically, especially in Toronto, majority of agents are into this career as a second, third, even a fourth career. So they're a little bit older. So it's a little bit more harder for them to embrace the new changes in ways of marketing and ways of doing things. Where I've always been like, bring it on. Like I'm game. I'm open to it. Like whatever I can do to help establish myself and raise them up the level of the game, then I'm for it. So I started with social media, getting back to that question, probably as it kind of came more prevalent maybe 7-8 years ago. But it didn't really, I was kind of like dabble. I didn't know a lot about it. I was kind of just doing it, kind of just doing my own thing. I wasn't really.
And where'd you start? Like on the Facebooks of the world, or?
Yeah, exactly. Started with Facebook, and then eventually led over to some Twitter and some Instagram. And then, we started with YouTube, and YouTube was kind of a funny thing. It was, I was sitting with my broker, my office started with my broker owner, Ken McLaughlin. And we were just talking about video, because video at that point was just kind of coming into play about 8 years ago or 9 years ago. And I was like, we were saying, why don't we create like a TV channel that kind of talks about the neighborhood and kind of ties all that stuff in? He goes, what do you want to call it? I said, how about North Toronto Living? And he's like, love it, let's do it. And now there's a reason why we switched to Living North Toronto. That's a whole other conversation, which I'm not going to get into today, but we can come back to that another time. And then, so that kind of where things grew. And then I joined, this is going to be the second time I'm going to do it, but I'm going to give Sirhan another plug again. I got caught up in with them in how to adapt and change your social media and things that I just didn't know about how your social media platform needs to look and how often you need to be posting and the way your grid should flow, and what's the difference between putting things on stories and what goes on your grid, and all these little things, IGTV and Reels, and all the little things that you can be doing. And I've embraced it and had fun with it, which is the key part of it. But I've learned so much from it. And in that time of growth in the last 11 months, I grew my personal page by almost 500 followers in 11 months. So from a real estate perspective, it's actually really good, I think, and from a stats standpoint.
Yeah, I want to unpack a couple of things you said there. You first started saying we changed the name. And I think that's so interesting to point out. The reason why I caught up on that is because here, we've changed our podcast name a couple times, not for FTGU, but for the actual real estate company that I work with. We've changed that 2 or 3 times already. And a lot of people, I think they get bogged down in the details, right? Oh my gosh, my personal brand, it has to be perfect. My logo has to be perfect. This is the thing I'm going to use for the next 35, 45, 55 years. It's take a breather, just get started with something. It doesn't have to be perfect. Put some content out there and then pivot as you go. Because what we do as humans, right, is we get a video. Video is the worst, right? People will analyze that video and they'll say, I don't like how my hair looked. I don't like how my face looked. I don't like how I sounded. And the logo's not right, whatever it is. And they won't put it up. The problem is it's very, very subjective, right? What I think looks good. I'm wearing a sweater, a baby blue sweater with a bow. I'm sure there's a lot of women out there who be that's the ugliest sweater. I would never wear a big bow on my shoulder, right? So things are subjective.
I think you look great. I think you look beautiful.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you. Well, I do what I can. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's subjective. It's my opinion versus someone else's opinion. So the idea is you need to put out the content, then get the feedback. And I don't mean one person's feedback. My mom said I didn't look good. If your mom said you didn't look good, chances are she's the type of mother that's always going to be critical of you no matter what you do. And she's trying to give you constructive feedback, but that doesn't mean everybody thinks that way. Right. And so and ask for that feedback, go back, get that feedback from people, then pivot.
Right. People get, wrapped up in the logos and the colors and all that stuff, but that's not really your brand. Your brand is actually you and what you stand for and what people know you to do and be a part of. Right. So, and that's where you got to think about how you want to create that. The brand and the coloring, the logos and all that stuff, that's all secondary. So, right, that comes later on down the road. So don't
exactly.
I think don't get so caught up in that stuff. Get your message across. I'll take Barry Cohen, for example. I was a very top agent in Toronto. For anyone who doesn't live in Toronto, who's not in the business, but
he's one of our top luxury real estate agents here. Yeah,
exactly. So he is known as a luxury brand agent, and he uses his logo kind of ties in a little bit with Mercedes, best in class, kind of thing. But he is known for high end luxury real estate. So and if you do condos, there's nothing wrong being known for being a condo expert and being a condo specialist, because that's what it is that you do, right? You guys are massively built upon, generational wealth and buying investment properties. Jazz is known as the investment realtor. He's the guy you go to when you want to make those investments, right? So, and which is all fantastic, right? So it's just about making sure you know what is it you stand for and what you're all about. Once you have that established, then you can turn around and start worrying about your color schemes and your logos and all that other stuff, right?
I love that you said that. Yeah, that's you hit the nail on the head there, which is that the logo is just representative of all those things. So take a piece of paper, write down the things you want to stand for. It really should be 2 or 3 things. And if you say integrity as your thing, every single person, that's a given. That's not your brand integrity.
No,
that to me is a given, right?
If you don't have integrity and you're selling real estate, I really kind of question your moral and ethical stand,
Exactly. So it has to be some other types of words. So I get this question a lot and I'm a big advocate of it. I'm going to explain it, my opinion on it, and I'd love to hear yours. When I'm talking about personal brand to real estate agents, a lot of times they'll tell me that they have an Instagram page, for example, for their real estate. And that's where they're going to show themselves in the suit. That's when they're going to show all their listings. That's when they're going to show all of their just solds. And then they have a separate Instagram page for their personal life where they show pictures of them and their dog or pictures of them cooking and everything else that they do in their life. It's my opinion that I think that should be one page, because at the end of the day, you are your personal brand, and your brand stands for more than just you being a real estate agent. Maybe you're a mom, maybe you're a sister, maybe you're obviously a daughter to somebody. You have hobbies, you have passions. Well, I would love to see those things. Not everybody is always in the market to be buying or selling a home. And so if they're not in that headspace at that time, when they go into Instagram and all you're putting is real estate information and education, which is great, but what else are you going to kind of feed them or entertain them with in those off times? And so I kind of go by the 60-40 rule, right? So 60% of your content should be in and around what you do. So again, let's use real estate agents here as the example. It should be educational content, bring value to your clients and your customers and your viewers and listeners from a real estate perspective. And then the other 40% should be in and around everything else that you do. So whether you like comic books, or maybe you really enjoy F1 racing, like I would love to hear your commentary on the Hamilton Verstappen race that's going on right now, because then you and I would probably connect, because I'm a Dutchie, so I'm a Verstappen fan. I would love to connect with other like-minded people.
I agree with you and I disagree with you. So I run 2 pages on my Instagram account. So I have livingnorthtoronto.tv is one account, and then I have Mark Arnstein as my personal account, right? Mm-hmm. But the differential is that, yes, Living North Toronto, because what it says is the idea about living in North Toronto, right? So it's all about the encompassing of buying homes and real estate, what's happening in real estate. It is real estate focused Instagram page. That's it. That's what it does, right? I do have a social media manager who runs that Instagram account. I don't really touch it. She's in charge of everything to do with it, because it doesn't really need my voice to it. It needs to be more of an informative page of what's going on. My personal account, and this is where I agree with you. So this is a part of that's Living North Toronto, is that with my personal, you got to have that blend. Yes, I agree. That shows that you're in real estate, but not necessarily you're posting stuff about real estate. Okay, so this is where you can take it and establish your brand of what we talked about from earlier. So if you are a condo person, or let's say go there for a second, then you can have lots of posts of you, pictures of you in various condos, but not necessarily that you're trying to sell that condo. It's that, I'm here at 500 Wellington. I'm looking at the penthouse that's up for lease right now for $25,000 a month. Just kind of cool. Like I'm outside on the front deck. And then incorporate all that stuff. But yes, that you have a family, if that's what you do, if you have a pet, if you like to work out, or if you're into Formula One, or you're a hockey person, or whatever sport that you're into, or, if you're a big shopper, you love clothes. You and
I both, perhaps.
yeah, guilty. I do love my clothes, but all those things, and then kind of shows like at a restaurant, or you like to cook. All those things, it all becomes, because it creates engagement, right? So if your page is all about one specific thing and it's on a personal page, you're gonna have people who are just gonna go off.
There it goes again, talking about that real estate again. It's interesting. Yeah. I like what you said. I actually agree with you, and maybe I should have prefaced this first. So my real estate company that I work for, we also have an Instagram page, REC Canada, right? Because we actually have 54 agents on our team.
Right.
And so that's like a brokerage or a company on its own that needs to speak to a certain audience, or the team members need somewhere to be able to drive potential traffic to say, this is what my team stands for and this is who we are. So I do think that is important. I think if you're a single agent, though, and you don't own your own team, or you don't have your own brokerage, right? Like you have your own space and you have people who you work with. So there needs to be that kind of brand presence, because you're branding it Living North Toronto. But really, my guess is most of the engagement comes from your personal page. Am I right?
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
But the Living North Toronto page is growing, which is really cool. It's been fun to watch since we've gone this route, and it's getting more and more engagement, and it's getting more and more followers. But the personal one has definitely skyrocketed and has taken off, and you can still have your stuff in there that shows that you're working on stuff. So it's just knowing what goes in your grid, which stays there forever, and then what goes on your stories, which is only up for 24 hours. And that's where you've got to make sure your page looks engaging. I don't know if I bring my phone up here for 1 second.
I always say like your grid should look more like a Vogue magazine, polished, edited, nicely done. Where in your stories, that's like kind of like the penny saver. Like that's where you put up all the stuff that you're doing every single day, and it doesn't have to be edited. Exactly. Yeah. Here we are. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm kind of looking at this backwards, but like, it shows there's like the colors are consistent, right? It's a lot of blue because that's what we use. But, there's our vlogs, there's, everything kind of like, but it shows like, life, my kids, family, podcasts, my dog, that's our new dog. That's Connor. That's our COVID puppy. Yeah. So he's a 100-pound Bernedoodle.
That's an interesting brand.
Yeah.
Breed. We're talking about brands.
Yeah. But like your page has got to be engaging. If you got stuff all over the map on there, people are just not going to like, it doesn't create excitement. People like, it doesn't have eye candy to it. Right. You think about, that's what you're trying. It's the eye candy that people are going to look at and go, ooh, I want to pay attention to that. That kind of looks interesting. I want to follow along.
Okay, Mark, what would be your top strategies? Like what type of content should people be producing? Because you're doing a lot. You're doing a vlog. You have a podcast. Yeah. You're filming your workouts. You're taking pictures. You're on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, podcast platforms. Like where would you recommend people start? That's a lot. That's a lot, right?
A lot.
Yeah.
It's the old adage, you got to, crawl before you walk before you run, kind of thing. So start slow and work your way up. Get comfortable with what you're doing. So I think definitely, I would start off probably with, the three big ones. If you can manage those three, if you can't manage those three, then start with like Facebook and Instagram. If you can throw your YouTube in there, then that's absolutely fantastic. And YouTube doesn't have to be even long and crazy. It can be short and sweet and to the point. They actually like that a little bit better now than going for these long-winded videos. But just, get off there, get that going. Once you feel comfortable, then you can start adding a couple more things later on down the road. But like, within your Instagram, make sure like, you get comfortable with making your posts on your grid. Get comfortable with knowing how to differentiate between what goes in your story and what goes in your grid, and create some reels, and then and work your ways into those things. And once you got comfortable building all that stuff up, then it's like anything. It's like the fire gets bigger, and you can add more fuel onto the fire and keep building it up and building it up and building it up. But I think if you try and take on too much too soon, you're going to get lost in the shuffle, and you're going to miss the boat. You're going to not be posting things properly. And the other thing also too is put it in your calendar. So like have it scheduled so that like you got to post at certain times, and you can see also as you're doing that, you'll get a gist of how your engagement goes on your posts as well. So if all of a sudden like if you post at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and that post is not doing really well, you may be like, okay, I'm not going to post at 5 o'clock in the afternoon anymore. I'm going to maybe post at 7 o'clock, or I'm going to post it first thing in the morning, and then just figure out kind of what are the best times, because depending on your followership, everything is going to differ. There's no rule or rhyme or reason to it. It's based on who people are that are following you. And then make that, just like your regular appointment schedule. So if I know my best engagement's at 10 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to make sure my posts are done at 10 o'clock in the morning, on this day of the week. And it becomes a consistent action that you have to do every day.
I love those tips. I want to close off this segment today.
That's it. We're gonna be done.
No. Well, we're going down one more path here. We're going down one more path, and I feel like
I don't want to
I feel like this is the most important place to close it off, because this is probably the thing I hear the most is I can explain people how to post something on YouTube. I can explain to people the purpose of personal branding or the reason they should be doing video. But there's always one thing that I find stops people. And it's usually fear. It's fear of the judgment of others, perhaps. It's fear of the judgment of themselves. It's the fear to look stupid. It's the fear of how they think they look. And there's usually some type of roadblock that stops people, even though they know they should be producing the content. There's something that's stopping them from doing it. Even myself, I went through this myself. The first time I was asked to be on a podcast, it didn't even have a video camera. It was audio only. And I was scared shitless. Like I like shaking, trembling. I had notes. You know what I mean? This is back in 2018 now. So obviously through practice, I've gotten better. The team knows this. Like when they're saying to me, like, Laura, it's photo time. Like we're doing a photo shoot with you. I'm like, oh God, I'm anything but a model. I'm 5 feet tall. Like there's no model quality in me. I hate posing. I think I look stupid all the time. I was wondering, Mark, if because you're so charismatic on camera and I feel like the camera loves you. Did you go through any of this stuff yourself? And tell me about that.
Yeah, no. Okay. So first off, before I talk about myself, I want to say a couple answers to your questions. One, how you look and how you sound is how you look and how you sound. So if someone is watching it and they see it and they come and meet you in real life, that's what they're going to get. That's what they're going to see. So it doesn't really matter. And the thing is, like, if you make mistakes along the way or you fumble and all that stuff, it's actually better because it actually shows that you're a human being, that you're a real person, and that you're being normal and natural, and it actually creates more engagement than would not. If it's so polished and so well done and so over the top, then it's kind of like, it almost sometimes loses a bit of its punch to it. So, but yeah, when I created my first video, God, on it, listen, I think it was 8-9 years ago. I think it was like 15 minutes long. And I literally went room by room talking about every little possible detail in the house. It was, but like I was, and like you said, I was totally nervous. I mean, like it's just, it takes time and practice. Like, it's like anything, right? It's like I only started doing the workout stuff and posting those things on my Instagram like this year. I was so nervous and so shy about it. Like I was like, I was like, no, I can't do that. That's not professional and da 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 da. But that's the stuff people want to see, that you have a life and that you're like a regular, normal person, that you do other things than just sell real estate, right? And, it takes time to get used to it. But the more it's like anything, it's creating habits. Like the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it, the more comfortable you're going to get with it. But you just got to start doing it. That's the key, right? Like, it's like exercise. It's like eating healthy. It's like, creating good work habits. It's like, the things you do with being a parent, training your dog, all those things don't happen instantaneously. They take time to develop and practice and practice and practice and practice and practice, Same thing. Look at like Connor McDavid. Yes, he has naturally God-given talent. He's a phenomenal hockey player, but he works his derriere off every single day to hone his skills and make him that much better, right? So that's why you have to kind of mentality you got to take about it. It's just like practice, 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 practice. And you might start off just like, talking into the camera and just recording yourself for fun and just getting used to just being comfortable in front of the camera. But I find the things that you do on the fly are the best, because like it's good, it's natural, it's good engagement, and it shows that you're having fun with it. But the cool part is people get to know who you are and what you're all about. So I know you want to say something. I'm gonna one more thing.
No, it's so good. Go.
But like, when we started doing all the videos and really incorporating them as part of like our video tours and the dedicated websites for the listings, when, as we were doing open houses, people literally would walk in and go, "Hi, Mark, how are you?" I'm like, "I'm great. How are you?" So I don't, have we met? And they're like, "No, but I watched your video." So I like, so now they're coming in, like they feel like they already know you. They're excited to be with you. They're ready to create engagement with you. So like, you're that much further ahead than you would be if you hadn't created that content. And now you're going to generate that much more business out of it. So like, why would you not do it? Is probably a better question.
That's so good. It's like the trust is already established before you're even sitting down and meeting people, right? And I always say, try to produce content that's shareable, where people want to share it with their friends and family. And that's how you're really going to grow. And it's true. It's such a slow burn. Like nothing's going to happen overnight. It's going to take a long, long time. I always say, give it a year at least before you're really going to start seeing some traction. Usually it happens a little bit faster, but some people, like, it takes them a little bit, right? To me, if you're waiting to do content, I truly think you're going to get left behind, in all honesty, because this is, 2022, we're getting into it now, and we're talking about metaverses and things like that. And you got to be on the socials of the world. You got to be doing this kind of stuff. And if you're wait until you're good, that is almost, to me, like, I would almost say, Mark, you'll get this reference. It's like waiting until you've lost the weight to go to the gym.
Yeah.
It's just not going to make any sense, right? So get started. Mark, I appreciate you being on our show so much.
Oh, I appreciate being here like this.
Getting to know you has been such a pleasure. You always bring the best energy and, more importantly, the most incredible smile. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
We're going to put all of your contact.
I'll slip you that 20 later on.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'll look for it in the mail. We're going to put all of the contact details, obviously, in the description notes. But where is probably the best place for people to connect with you?
Probably Instagram. Just follow along at Mark Arnstein. Really simple, easy breezy. Don't like, and that's the other thing is like, if you want people to know who you are and where to find you, like, don't come up with these wacky accounts that no one can find, right? Like, if you're in the business and you want people to know what's going on, make your account very simple and easy to find. So at Mark Arnstein.
Make it your brand. I love it. On that note, thanks again, Mark. We'll talk soon.
Sounds good.